out, how ay 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 ay. How we out, how we out, ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay. How ay 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 ay. How ay 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 ay.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are also streaming with Real Liberty Media and People's Internet Radio. So welcome everyone. We have a really good show, a 2-hour show tonight. In the second hour, we are going to welcome back Oompa Noompa, who is going to give a report from his trip to Chiapas, Mexico. He was invited by the Zapatistas to attend the Conference of Indigenous Peoples down there. So stick around. But the first hour, we have a warrior woman who I've been wanting to get on this show for a very long time. Welcome to The Bridge, Joann May Spotted Bear.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate that. And hello to everybody out there. Thank you.
Joann, did you want to introduce yourself in a traditional way before I get Mike in here?
Yes. Tokaya Tinkashila Wupla Waku. Lemiecha Matonia Hemie. Chunkpe Opiomatiwa. My dear relatives, before we say anything, we always thank the Creator first. My Lakota name is Bear Woman, and I'm an original descendant of the Little Bighorn, the Wounded Knee Massacre, 1890, World War I, World War II, 1973 during the AIM occupation days, also known as the Wounded Knee occupation. My father was a Bureau of Indian Affairs employee who walked off his job. And today I'm known as an ambassador at the United Nations, but among the Lakota people, I'm an Ikjemwea, a common person who walks among her people.
Thank you so much, Joann. And so in the Lakota tradition is very strong adoption tradition, making relatives of people. And one person you've made a relative of is our guest that's joining us now. Welcome to The Bridge, Mike Gamms.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. Hey. And
you are known as a comedian.
By some people, yeah.
Yeah. As well as some other things that people might want to label you as. So thank you both for taking the time to come on the show. We have a lot to get to in the hour, so I want to leave it up to Joann to start with the information that she wants to start with, so that we can get it out there.
Okay. I'd like to thank all the listeners, and yes, it's very true. Mike is my hunka son. I actually have a son that same age as Mike. Both boys are 30 years old. Mike went out of his way to help us at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. And he helped gather the water protectors so that we may speak, and organized it in New York. And he's helped to release the true facts of what's really going on in Indian countries. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Mike has jeopardized his life to help the water, Mini Wichoni, water sacred among indigenous people around the world. And what Mike has done is far beyond any words or any person can ever say. And that is, he gave his life to the Creator so our people may live. And with that being said, I want to start out in 1973. I remember as a little girl, there was 3 men that came over to my grandma's home. Her name's Helen, shot to pieces, Grant. And she told one guy, and that guy was Russell Means, and he brought 2 of his friends to our home in Wounded Knee, and she told them, "Taku hecha nia yuchi lecha umpalo." Ashton Daku Tinky, Gaka Hecha Pine Ridge, Kituo. Nadako Hecha, Nia Utin, Gaka Hecha Nico. Lecha Chankwe Opiki, Oyatiki Ihade. What that means in English is whatever you're looking for, it's on this paper, this black ink on white paper. But if you really want an answer, your problems are in Pine Ridge. But if you want to be famous, then go to Hollywood. She said, everybody here in Wounded Knee, they're all dead. There's nothing. And I could remember they sat down, they ate, they drank coffee, they talked. And I remember had to be, I can't tell you exactly how many days or weeks went by, but there was a woman that came to our house. I remember seeing her, and she was really pretty, beautiful, beautiful woman. And I asked my grandma and this woman, I said, are you going to stay? Are you going to stay with us? Are you going to be my mom? and she was really pretty, beautiful woman. And this woman, my grandma, I remember her telling this woman, she said, you need to go home. You need to go back where you came from, because these boys, they don't know what they're doing. They're just doing anything they want, anything. And I need to step back a little bit, back to Russell Means. My grandma, I remember her telling Russell Means that to pray, to have a peyote meeting, to Bluhichiapo, or to Sundance, and all the answers that he really wants will be there. But he never had a peyote meeting, even though my grandma offered him the teepee and the peyote grounds that was right behind our house. He never he never sacrificed those 4 days, and he never sundanced when they started American Indian movement in Wounded Knee. He didn't. Matter of fact, he didn't do a lot of things in Wounded Knee. There's a lot of broken promises from the American Indian movement. So those of us that come from Wounded Knee, that are really grassroots, we don't like the American Indian movement. We don't even like them using our name, because they made a lot of promises, and most of them were false.
Right, and that really surprises a lot of non-natives, because they think of the movement as this one singular movement. And what I invite people, non-natives, to really take a look at is how movements are co-opted, and very quickly. And why would the American Indian movement be any different from any other movement in that? So how could they last for 40 years without being co-opted? That would be impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I grew up, before my grandma died, I remember my grandma crying, and she said, she looked to the west out of our home, and she was crying, and she said, someday, she said, you kids, you're going to have to fight just to stay alive. You're going to have to fight. And she was really crying. And I remember her, she was praying, and she used to smoke Salem cigarettes, and she used to write in the air, and she wrote little notes, and she would pray about it. And sometimes she even pull out her chanupa and she'd pray. But for my grandma, she was a medicine woman, believed in the Native American church, the peyote ways. And she used to tell how they forced the Bible to go into the Native American church, or the peyote members could not practice the Native American church. So today, they incorporated the Native American church, but the only way they could incorporate it was to use the Bible. And people today take advantage of the Native American church and put a 501c3, which is wrong. The Sundance, the Native American church, the Humblecha are never to be taken for granted, nor are they ever supposed to be incorporated by any EIN number or charter or corporation. And some of these people, they done that. Hey, I really wanted to cuss.
Good job. Yeah. Yeah, because it's something sacred, so you're not supposed to be like making money from it or incorporating it, as you say.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Joe. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so as we continue on, I remember as when I was, I believe, after my grandma died in '79 until I turned 25, I remember many a times all I wanted to do was drink, do drugs, and die, because I knew that we had this vision that was embedded into our lives that we had to carry on. And all of us, when we pick up the chanupa and we pray and we ask for a vision, it can happen that way. And those who don't pick up the chanupa and ask for a vision, it's like they know what they're supposed to do, but they're lost. And a lot of people say, I don't want that chanupa. That chanupa is too hard to carry. And many of the sun dancers, they say, we drink and do drugs because the vision, it's like nobody cares. And it's just nobody want to listen to us. So when I was 27 years old and homeless in Reno, Nevada, I remember Bucky Sampson, he told me, he said, Joann, he said, if you pick up this chanupa, he said, Lakota prayers are strong. One day you're going to be something that you never thought you'd ever dream of. And at that point, at the sweat lodge, I told him, I said, Bucky, I said, I don't want to be something that I'm not. I said, my family already fought in the Little Bighorn and died in the Wounded Knee Massacre. I said, and my dad was a Bureau of Indian Affairs employee at one time. I don't want to be nothing. I just want to drink and do drugs and learn how to pay bills, but I don't know how to do shit. I'm just a poor, pitiful woman who don't know nothing. And I don't know how all these people in this country have homes and great jobs and all this. And it wasn't until I met Dose Perrine. She became a counselor for me. And she had me write down some dreams. The first one was a high school diploma, then college, and then I wanted to work for Amazon.com. And then I wanted to meet one of the richest millionaires in the world. And then I chuckled and laughed, and I said, I want to rule the world.
Wow.
Hey, Joann, can I ask you a question?
Let me finish this up just
okay,
quick,
go ahead.
Just really quick. I did get my high school. I did go to college for computer business management. I did work for Amazon.com. I did drive semi across the country. I did meet the 6th richest millionaire in the world, who was Dexter Yeager, in 2003. And with Mike's help and many others, we went to the United Nations and confronted the world leaders.
Right on.
True.
Right.
Joann, you were talking about how in, say, around 1973 or so, Russell Means went to your grandmother's house, and she basically told him, if you want to be famous, go to Hollywood. And then from there, you were talking about this beautiful girl, this woman who came to your grandmother's house then, but I wanted to hear more about that. I don't know if you finished that part yet.
That woman that came to our house, that was Anime Aquash.
And as those past listeners who have listened to my interviews with Denise Pictou Maloney, that was her mother, and her mother was murdered in the 1975. Yeah.
Her Denise's mom, my grandma had 4 homes on her land. There was my grandma's house and 2 small shacks and 1 big log cabin. And then there was a outside water thing that she pumped, water pump. And then about, I say 200 yards maybe, there was a fence. and my friends Lori and Jackie Gardner, one time we were walking around along the creek, and they said this is where that woman died. And in 1973, Anime Aquash was the one that they were talking about.
So you're saying that they say that she died in a different location from where she was found, is what you're saying?
Yes, she was murdered not too far from the fence line of my dad and my grandma's land. Well, actually, all of it is ours. From the cemetery of the Wounded Knee Massacre, there's those tree lines, and then there's a white trailer there. Well, from that white trailer and tree line, everything back 180 acres belong to us.
Right. And so when you were talking about Mike, basically, risking his life to get some information out, what he's done, I think it was a couple weeks ago, put out a live video on Facebook that really connected all of today's players in the environmental movement with what happened to Annie Mae back in the 70s. And this legacy of AIM, who I've said in past shows has basically in many ways bastardized Native ways to make it seem like it's a male dominated type of tradition, which it's not. And Anna Mae back in the 70s was telling him this isn't our way. We're free. We're not here to make your coffee. We're here to be leaders too. We're here to be warriors too. And so I just wanted to give Mike the opportunity to kind of go into that a little bit, how you connected this past AIM murder basically with a modern day AIM murder too, because we got to talk about Todd Littlebull and how this is connected, because it's about intimidation, and it's about keeping secrets and keeping the same group of people in power.
Kara.
Yes.
Before Mike starts, I just want to let you know that Alex Whiteplume was starting to date Deborah Whiteplume. And back in 73, Alex used to beat the holy shit out of Deborah. And you could hear her cries and screams echo throughout the valley of Wounded Knee. And the only reason I know that is because my grandma knew who Deborah Whiteplume was and Alex. And Alex's name is on the Keystone XL pipeline. And so I just want my Hunka son to go ahead and I told him these stories, and he's the one who did a lot of connecting the dots. Sorry, son, I just wanted to clear that up real quick.
No, go ahead. You can speak as much as you want. I'm just here to support you, and be of assistance when I can. So,
no, Ed,
but so what I started to learn is the more I looked into things, I just kept seeing the same names over and over again and the same tactics. And I realized that there's been like sort of a stronghold on all indigenous issues and all environmental issues dating all the way back to the AIM occupation and probably before, where it's the same tactics and the same people. They may have different names, but it's the same game, and it all is and it all connects down to today. And I realized that a lot of the major players that were involved in the murder and the cover-up of Annie Mae Aquash, their relatives are continuing that legacy of violence, misogyny, and corruption today. It's done in different ways, but it's the same concept, where there's these powerful men up front that are getting rich and famous, despite the fact that they don't really have the best interest of all the people in mind. They're doing things that serve themselves. I refer to them as like the 1% water protectors, because just like there's a 1% in our whole society, there's a 1% within these movements too. And they're the ones that are getting all the donations. They're the ones that are getting all the followers, and they're doing it while also doing corrupt things. And it's really, really disheartening. So I made that video that sort of connected the things that are going on today within the Standing Rock movement and within other environmental movements back to Annie Mae Aquash and the AIM occupation. But I need to be clear is that it's not just that these people are related to the same people, because I understand that, a lot of people are related, that a lot of people are family. So it doesn't, just because you're related to someone that did evil doesn't mean that you're evil. But if you continue a legacy of corruption and you're related, like it kind of is very telling to me.
Right. So
yeah.
specifically, I mean, when we're talking about Standing Rock, the Indigenous Environmental Network came in and took over. They weren't the first ones there on the spot. There were plenty of other families that were there before they showed up. Mm-hmm. But they took over, and then all media had to check in with them, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous media, and whoever was in between. Because they
sort of co-opted everything.
Yeah, they controlled the narrative. It was really strange because there was that you couldn't really get any service in the camp, but you could get service. They could get service. Like while they were live streaming, I had 2 different types of phones. There was no way I couldn't even get a signal. So they were sucking up whatever signal there was at the time. Before they stopped blocking the signal or whatever. It was just really fishy and strange, and I certainly didn't check in with them. I don't have to check in with anyone,
See, I came in as an outsider, so I wasn't. I took all these things at blind faith because there's this. I think I've talked with you about this before. Maybe there's sort of this liberal mindset where you assume that every single, like the whole Native movement, everyone is being victimized, but you don't realize that there's people at the top that are doing the victimizing themselves. So I trusted everyone at blind faith. When I first came to camp, I was, worshiping people like Dallas Goldtooth and Chase Iron Eyes and Dave Archambault. I took everything that they said as the word of the law. Until I started to experience more things and see things for myself and realize that there was a lot of fishy things going on. When I first started to realize that there was something weird happening is because I didn't just spend my time like at the camps, like at Oceti. I also spent a solid 2 weeks like living on the Standing Rock Reservation, in the districts around the camps. And what I saw was this extreme level of poverty and addiction and suicide. And the thing that bothered me is I was at the camps and we had stacks and stacks of food. We had so much food we didn't know what to do with it. Most of the time I was at the camp, it was like stacking up all these donations of food. Yet then I went 10 minutes away to the reservation, to the people that were living there, and they didn't have money for groceries, and they didn't even know how to get any of this food from the camp. I'm telling you, let's just go up to the camp, and we'll just put some stuff in your car. And they're like, well, they never told us that we could do that, or our own tribal government isn't facilitating to let us know that all this stuff that's being sent to them can go to the people. So they're all these donations were coming into places like the Standing Rock Tribal Government and IEN and Red Warrior and Chase Iron Eyes. Yet the people that live there on the reservation were not getting any of it, and they still haven't. And that's really what started to make me think that, hey, wait, maybe there's something else going on here. Don't accept everything as a blind truth. There's maybe something else going on here.
Yeah, right. So that brings us to the all of the stuff that was sort of not only just funneled through these Indigenous Environmental Network and Red Warrior and all that, but and the tribe. But there was that big.
Red Warrior is, Mike?
What'd you say?
You want to tell them who Red Warrior is?
Yeah. Okay. So Red Warrior is sort of run by the White Plumes, who Joann was talking about earlier. And they're also the camp that one of the few camps at camp that was completely fenced off and private, and they were really secretive of what they were doing. But that's because they were the most aggressive and violent camp at Standing Rock. Like, they were pushing violent direct action without approval of anyone else. And what would happen is that would cause a reaction back from DAPL and Morton County, and people would get hurt. And the more people got hurt, the more people sent donations into camp. So Red Warrior was profiting off the fact that people were getting hurt. And then we know that the White Plumes have invested in pipelines. So they were purposely getting people hurt at the camp so that they could make money so that they could then donate it or then invest it in oil. And they were also bringing some, it's pretty heavy. And Deborah White Plume also brought one of the most dangerous people to camp, a man by the name of T.R. McKenzie, who at one point was head of security of Red Warrior. And this is a person that has worked with Deborah White Plume since as far back as at least 2012. She wrote about him before in different publications, and he actually was a contributor at one time for Chase Iron Eyes' Last Real Indians, where Deborah White Plume was also a contributor. And he wrote an article about his work with Deborah White Plume. And so this guy, T.R. McKenzie, even before he made it to Standing Rock, he's been kicked out of multiple other movements and different activist groups for being a sexual predator. He would ask people how old they were. Like, he would talk to them on the internet, and they would say, "Oh, I'm 17." And then he would ask them, young boys, for shirtless pictures or ask them about their sexuality. This is a 36-year-old man, and he would be badgering 17, 18-year-olds about their sexuality and telling them, and asking them dirty questions and stuff like that. And then while at the camp, there's been several reports that while at Red Warrior, he was handling the money for Red Warrior, so that if anyone at the camp needed any money for anything, they would have to go through him. So you would have young girls like that needed, supplies for their moon, they needed tampons or things like that. And he would mock them and humiliate them before giving them money. And this was the man that Deborah White Plume put in charge there.
Nice.
So there's there's Red Warrior is very problematic. And that's actually, yeah. Do you want to talk about Alex White Plume Jr., Joann?
Yeah. Back in 2014 in Pine Ridge, when we found out that Alex White Plume, Alex White Plume, John Still, John Huston, Dean Patton, and Tom Corbear names are on the XL, or the Keystone XL pipeline. As investors, Alex White Plume and his son and some of his family members threatened to kill me, and they said that I had better watch my back. Well, when we were in Standing Rock, I got a phone call from outside of North Dakota, and it was a friend of mine, and he said, "Joann, we just got word that at the next big action, Deborah White Plume's son is going to kill you, and they're going to blame American Indian movement. So you better be careful or get out of it."
Wow.
So we just kept going, and a lot of this has to do with the 1851 treaty, and it also has to deal with the United States being bankrupt as of 1933. Corporations can sue and be sued, but a bankrupt corporation can't. Because the United States went bankrupt in 1933, they became a for-profit corporation under 28 U.S.C. 3002. So now they have a charter number. And then in order for Standing Rock agency to have any say, they manipulated 7,000 people plus 4,000 veterans into believing Standing Rock, Dave Archambault, was the leader. And Dallas and Tom Goldtooth would back him up with Deborah White Plume. And together, all of these people, they would use, like Mike said, they use different names. They're the same players, they just use different names. And a lot of these players that were in Standing Rock actually grew up in Pine Ridge. And in Pine Ridge, Thunder Valley was manipulating money, embezzling money from the tribe during John Steele's administration. And Obama administration never did nothing about it. So we took it to the United Nations in 2014, as well as the Wallapai Treaty of North Dakota and the fact that California had 18 unratified treaties. And Hugo, I can't say his name, anyway, the Mexican treaty, the Spanish one was written out of the Chronicle list of international treaties, and the English treaty was written in, which is treason of treaties and fraud by trickery. And then we also found out that at this time, the United States had, when they failed to ratify, not just once in 2014, but twice. So 2016 makes it 3 times they failed to ratify. However, they, being a tribal half-breed, half-white, half-Indian, when he went to Geneva, Switzerland, and spoke with the United States of American ambassador, the question is, who the hell give Dave the authority to supersede over Native American Indians, the Pueblos, because the United States don't even talk to us, Pueblos, but yet they'll talk to Dave Archambault. And even though he spoke on record, what did they say off record? Because nobody ever told us what the hell was going on, and Dave has no authority over our full-blooded Indians.
And Dave's been meeting with and working with the United States government for at least since 2010. His sister, Jody Gillette Archambault, was the first ever Native American to be White House liaison to the tribes. And years before there was ever a water protector camp at Standing Rock, President Obama had said, I love Jody Gillette Archambault and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. So he was very familiar with Standing Rock and had been working with Dave. He'd been to Standing Rock. There's pictures of him there. There's video of him there. And he'd been meeting with Dave Archambault and his sister, Jody Gillette Archambault, for years before this water protector movement ever happened, before the camps ever came up at Standing Rock. Yet suddenly, once the camp started, Obama didn't say a damn word until December 5th. So he had been involved with Standing Rock and had publicly on record been to Standing Rock, talked about Standing Rock. Then suddenly there's this big, giant international movement happening right at Standing Rock, and Obama suddenly now doesn't have a word to say about it. Only on December 5th did he finally say something, and that's when him and Dave Archambault announced that the permit to keep building the pipeline had been denied, which was a fake victory, in my opinion, because all that did was it gave Dave an excuse to tell everyone to leave camp, to everyone to leave Standing Rock, everyone to pack up and go home. This is over. We won. This was December 5th. Donald Trump had already been elected president, and we knew that he was going to just greenlight this pipeline right away. He had already been previously on the board for Energy Transfer Partners. He's super pro-oil, super pro-pipeline. So Obama and David Archambault and his sister, Jody Gillette Archambault, worked together to make this fake victory to send everybody home so that they could clear out the camps so that the pipeline could continue to be built. Meanwhile, making millions of dollars in donations, pretending to be a water protector.
And what happened during this time, we are in Standing Rock. I want to go back a little bit to August, July, August, the grandmothers in Pine Ridge had called me, and they asked me to go to Standing Rock because I knew what happened. I remember praying and telling Tinkashila, I don't want to go, I'm broke. I don't want to do this. And I was only supposed to be gone a week, and I wind up losing my home. But during the process, I met a beautiful Hunkasan, and that's Mike. And as we work together, we are learning everything that the grandmothers and grandfathers have said is very true, that there are people who will do anything for that U.S. government to kill our people, including our own. just like they did Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, and to be careful.
Right. So you basically, to recap, what you're saying is that the whole Standing Rock thing was basically a way to make money. Like they wanted it to go through anyway, and they made up this whole movement and fooled everybody. I mean, is that what it comes down to?
I would say that.
Let me
okay, go ahead.
that one.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, the Treaty of 1851, according to the chronological list of international treaties worldwide, is one of 3 treaties that made it to the world treaties around the world. Even though there's 564 federal recognized tribes, the 1851 treaty bypassed Congress and made it into the chronicle list of international treaties worldwide, which means it is supreme law of the land. The land in North Dakota, because it's only a safe passage, the 1851 treaty is not a local title, a deed, or a bill of sales. It's a safe passage only. Nobody was supposed to be building anything there, no businesses or cities or anything. So if you look at it, there's LA, Chicago, Detroit, and then it goes to New York. But they're in the Great Plains area. There's no humongous city in that area. And so when the pipeline was coming through, there was 2 court cases prior to Standing Rock. The Wilder Ranch, I believe, was one, and I can't remember the second one. But these 2 court cases were never resolved in court. So when Standing Rock and Cheyenne Eagle Butte took the court case to Washington, D.C., they filed in the District Court of Columbia, Washington, D.C. The District Court of Columbia is not a federal court. The District Court is a lower court. What Dave Archambault and Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, as well as Department of Justice and the United States, was to fool the people of the nation and the world. The 1851 treaty should have been in the Supreme Court among the original people of the land. However, Judge James Ballenberg, or whatever the heck his name is, he made a sole decision in the courtroom to make a judgment on the 1851 Fort Army Treaty without a jury. And he knew that treaties are very specific. They are law of the land, and lower courts don't have no say. And that is strictly written in Constitution. Article 6, Clause 2 describes that treaties are supreme law of the land, and no judges or lawyers in any state they're bound to them. That means that they have to send them to the Supreme Court. And so what happened is all of these agencies and the de facto corporations, when they came together, they allowed a lower court judge to make a decision. So when Jody Archambault of the Bureau of Indian Affairs and David Archambault, working with the Obama administration and the Trump administration, they fooled not only Indian country, but the nation and the world. And even to this day, there is no court papers being filed in the Supreme Court. However, with Mike and our other allies in the United Nations, we serve the United Nations and the United States for lying to the Great Lakota Nation on the bankruptcy of 1933 concerning the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Wow, so that's how that all fits in there.
Yeah. Kira, can I answer that question that you asked in just like a little bit of a specific way? So you said, are you saying that this whole thing was like a trick? So my interpretation of it is no, it wasn't. I think that people like Dave Archambault never expected there to be a movement at all. They wanted to just push this pipeline through, just like the Mandat Hidatsa have a pipeline going through their land, and they approved that. That's tribal government approved. But what happened is that a bunch of kids were like, screw this. We don't want a pipeline coming through here. And that's who started the Standing Rock camps. That's who started the water protector camp, was the youth. But then it started to get so much attention that Dave Archambault had to, on paper, pretend to be pro-water protector, not pro-pipeline. But he knew that there was no way that the pipeline was ever going to get stopped. But he saw an opportunity to make money on both sides. But because of those kids starting this water protector camp, that is key to exposing all of this stuff, because we never would have seen just how corrupt and just how deep all of these things are going if those kids hadn't decided to make a stand that day and just set up this camp and sort of set off this domino effect that has really broken things wide open. And I would say that of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that went to Standing Rock and paid attention to Standing Rock, less than 1% of them are corrupt. So you're talking about thousands, maybe millions of people that have the right intentions and believe in clean water and believe in the treaties and believe in all of these things. But there's just this 1% who are the figureheads and have the political power, the media power, and the financial power to be making decisions that are behind closed doors, not in favor of the people.
Yeah, so this thing really could have been won if not for this behind the scenes stuff that was going on, where people were pretending to be, down for the fight.
Dave Archambault did say that he believed water was a necessity and it would not hurt the Great Lakota Nation.
Or oil.
Yes. And
he
what
said,
happened,
yeah.
Okay. And what I believe that when we went to Flint, Michigan, there used to be 190,000 people. Now there's 90,000. The ones that are getting business today are those the hospitals, the morgue, and the cemeteries. I have actual documents that bitumen, benzene, Legionnaires, Gadolina, copper, and lead is what's in the people's bodies today. And even a 3-month-old baby who did no wrong to nobody will not live for 10 years. So what devastates me is Hall and the holy heck, and I really mean holy heck, can Dave lie and say that big oil won't hurt our Lakota Nation? What makes me angry deep down in my heart is how the hell can you stand up for a de facto government and abuse our treaties, our treaties, and go against our traditional ways using that chanupa and dishonoring our relatives. And you're going to accept this money. You're going to accept this goddamn money. And you're going to tell us it's not going to hurt us. But meanwhile, there's people dying in Flint because of the same issues that have happened over there, which is only a couple states away. And you're going to tell the people that it's okay, that nothing wrong is, I mean, like, you know what, I wish.
I know the exact quote. I have it right here.
I'm gonna have to take a break because Mike knows that when I think about this, it devastates me, it pisses me off, and it makes me really angry. Dallas and Tom Goldtooth, David Archambault, Alex Whitesloom, and all of them, but yet they have the freaking nerve to want to kill me for telling the truth. Heck with all of them and their families.
One of the things that one of the things that you both have been saying about Dallas Goldtooth is that when the story of this Rosal poisoning came out, that he had worked to sort of cover it up and say it's really not a big deal, but there was an issue there is an issue. I'm not sure because I didn't get a chance to look at the map where that poison was put, or I haven't met water protectors who have themselves been poisoned, but you guys have, right?
Yeah, I've talked to more than one person that has had blood work done and tested positive for exposure to rosyl. It was in their blood.
So how close was that poisoning to the camps? How close was that?
I don't have the exact figures in front of me right now, but it was in the areas like surrounding where the camps are, and it was such an excessive amount. Like, no exaggeration, was 20 tons of this. It was 22 1,800-pound bags of rosyl. Like, that is a significant amount that can't just be cleaned up from tilling it into the soil. Like, that's what the cleanup that Allison Two Bears of the Standing Rock EPA signed off on was. They just tilled this back into the soil, and there's multiple reports of dead animals of buffalo dying and birds dying, and these carcasses are just left laying around, which means another animal can then pick at them, and then they're poisoned, and it just spreads. Like, it's a significant amount, 20 tons of this. You know, that is a lot. and the fact that it was just completely dismissed, because anything that could possibly negatively affect the narrative that these one percenters, Alice and Tom Goldtooth, Dave Archambault, and the like, wanted to present, they didn't even investigate it or look into it further. They just dismissed it as false news, not like saying, unless it comes from us, it's not true, which there needs to be transparency and an open dialogue about these things. People need to know, and it should have been something that IEN was reporting on and investigating and having an ongoing open narrative about this, not just shoving it under the rug. And that's the major problem that I have with these guys, is that they don't have any transparency. They have zero transparency. Anything that could possibly paint them in any sort of negative light, or just they brush it under the rug instead of having a conversation. So if you're hiding things, it makes me even more worried about what you're up to. And this isn't something new. It's not like that Dallas and Tom Goldtooth just within the last year started being a little bit questionable. Their entire history of Indigenous Environmental Network is a history of gatekeeping and co-opting movements. And even so, IEN was founded in 1990 by Dallas's father, Tom Goldtooth, and his sister, Neeloch Butler. Neeloch Butler was married to Dino Butler, who was one of the original AIM thugs that was involved with the Annie Mae Aquash cover-up. So they're already connected to this horrible thing from the 70s, and they're continuing that now. One of the things, another really strong example is in 2008 at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, there was a movement called the 2nd of May Revolt, which was when a group of people that were at the United Nations had gotten sick of not being heard, and it was a group from the Indigenous Caucus of the Americas and International Native Tradition Interchange. This was on May the 2nd, 2008. They made an uproar at the UN. During General Assembly, they just started chanting, let us speak, and disrupted the whole entire United Nations, so much so that security was called and they were almost removed. But then they eventually were given the floor at the General Assembly. Meanwhile, Tom Goldtooth wasn't even in the room for this, yet all the reports that came out after that feature Tom Goldtooth as if he was the star of the movement. He's been quoted as being the star of the May the 2nd revolt, yet he wasn't even there in the room that day. And I know multiple people that were there in the room that day and were at the United Nations that day, and they saw Tom Goldtooth going into closed-door meetings with World Bank and REDD, which are the people that the May the 2nd revolt was standing up against. So it's like I'm saying, it's nothing that is new for Indigenous Environmental Network and Tom Goldtooth and Dallas Goldtooth. They've been involved in corruption, and they've been co-opting movements and taking things over for their entire history. Like, that's what they do. That's how they built their entire brand, as sticking their hand in every cookie jar that they can and then claiming it as theirs. They're just as bad as the. Yeah, sorry.
Tell them about the energy in Minnesota, what they did there.
Oh, so there's been a lot of issues going on in Minnesota, environmental concerns and indigenous concerns, and there's been some meetings for the Energy Quality Board in Minnesota, where this group MN350 was trying to get indigenous people to come out to these meetings with the idea that they would be allowed to give feedback on their own issues. And I know some people that have attended these public hearings in the state of Minnesota, and on more than one occasion, when they went to give their feedback, they were told by the board, "Oh, we've already consulted with Tom Goldtooth, so the indigenous issues are covered." Like, he speaks for everyone.
Wow.
And that's not how things are supposed to be. Like, I get that they're influential and that they have that they're involved in a lot of things, but you don't use that power to block everybody else out. You use that to lift everyone up, be inclusive. But the only things that I see them being inclusive of are people that are related to them, their family. They give themselves a platform, and they give others that are related to them a platform, and that's it. So unless you're one of them, then you have no voice.
Right. So we have about 2 more minutes, and this has gone really, really fast. We'll have to have maybe a part 2 at some point. But it's a lot of information to really process at this point. But what I'd like to point out is that, like you were saying, that the MO is there. You go and you take over. And when I was in camp, I did see the Red Warrior set up and thought it was interesting how it was sort of roped off away, from everyone else and controlled and everything. And then there was this big story going around that AIM and Red Warrior had separated. So that was like November. And at the time it seemed like a story. And now I've seen it pushed, that story pushed whenever anyone tries to connect AIM with Red Warrior. That story of their big split in camp is forwarded. So when you were saying that they were using violence, like what kind of violence was Red Warrior using?
Intimidation, rape, manipulation, embezzlement, I mean, you name it, they were using it. And Alex knew he had no say in the treaties. When Oliver Red Cloud passed, Alex Weissman couldn't even see Oliver Red Cloud's body because the family kept him aside. And when Deborah...
We are out of time. Thank you two so much for joining me. Audience, stick around for the second hour.
Thank you.